Welcome back into the basement, everybody. Basement Bar Sports, fourth and uncensored podcast. My name is Adam. Be going over some of the spring game happenings. And for those of you that follow us on social media, I will be bringing out the top 20 college football coaches of all time, as thought of by me. So you may not agree, but that's okay. We'll get to that here towards the end of the podcast here. We'll start talking about some of these spring games, what we saw, what, some of the top teams are looking like and what some of the other teams are doing. So first and foremost, Georgia still looking like number one. I don't see them not being number one at the beginning of the year. They're going to be tough to beat. I'm sure they'll have a cupcake schedule this year. They're not going to the new format for another year where their schedule is going to be a little more difficult. So they probably won't play the best schedule. I haven't looked at it to see what it looks like, but I'm sure that it's going to be not too difficult. However, their schedule wasn't too difficult last year, and they absolutely thoroughly destroyed TCU in the national championship game. So they probably should have lost to Ohio State, but wide left. I don't want to talk about it. But definitely still looking like number one. Their quarterback situation, I don't think they're too worried. Defense looks great. Offense still looks really good. So I don't foresee them not being number one this year. For some reason, they put Alabama ahead of them. I don't know. But anyway, so Ohio State, the O-line is going to be an issue by what I've seen so far. Lost a lot of good guys on the offensive line for this year, so they need to be able to run block and pass block to get those get that running back room, which is strong, and obviously the wide receiver room strong. But in order to get the ball to those wide receivers and open up holes for the running backs, we got to have a good O-line. So the defense, jury's still out kind of on them. The number ones didn't play on offense very long or at all. Some of them, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. played maybe a quarter. So we'll see what the defense looks like this year. Hopefully in the second year, we'll have a better defense. We were better last year than we've been in previous years, but still not the greatest. Definitely want to see that defense improve. So Penn State looks pretty solid, except for maybe the wide receiver room. They're not the greatest in the wide receiver room. However, they got two stud running backs, two young guys. Their defense is coming back, except for Joey Porter Jr., but they still look pretty strong on the defensive side of the ball. I think they're going to be running it a lot. I think they're going to try to run it down people's throats. I think that's what their goal is going to be through the course of the season. I think that Ohio State game, Penn State game is going to be huge. Michigan, Penn State will be huge to see who comes out of the East. Really, I don't see anybody else being a big player in the East except for the top three as usual. And then the West, we'll see what Nebraska and Wisconsin look like, new coaches, see if it gets them a renewed vigor. We'll see. I still think they're probably going to be a year or two out from being back to the top tier of what they were as long as these coaches work out. Matt Rule for Nebraska and Luke Fickell for Wisconsin. So we'll see what happens. Do have, Tanner Mordecai, who went to Wisconsin as a transfer, so that'll be good for Wisconsin. Speaking of quarterbacks, going to Texas. Quinn Ewers will be the starter over Arch Manning. Kind of foresaw that happening. I mean, true freshman coming in. Is he really going to be able to compete with a used to be consensus number one quarterback coming out of high school with Quinn Ewers? So I kind of foresaw that happening, but he's in the wings waiting. So if Ewers, really screws up this year, and we've seen it plenty of times in other places. Jalen Hurts, before he left Alabama, got taken out. Tagovailoa came in, so on and so forth. And then you had it at Oklahoma as well with Rattler and Why is his name escaping me? Anyways, you had it there before he transferred to USC with his coach Lincoln Riley. So yeah, Texas going with Ewers. Their defense, they looked okay. I think that's been their kind of Achilles heel coming back. So we'll see what the defense looks like this year. How about Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes selling out their spring game for the first time in God knows how long? They've been terrible for years. 1-11 last year. So what does a good season look like for Colorado? Is it 5-7, 6-6? What's considered a flop for year one for Deion? Is it less than 5 wins, more than 5 wins? I mean, coming out at 1-11, I think a 500 season even looks good for them. But they got a good coaching staff there. He put together a really good coaching staff. So we'll see what happens. I mean, he brought his son with him, as well as the consensus number 1 cornerback wide receiver. So they followed him over to Colorado. So we'll see what he has, what he doesn't have. I think year one will be a kind of barometer on how things go for him. I mean, he took over one of the worst programs in the country, so we'll see what happens, see if he can get it turned around. And I think that was kind of why he went there. It's a challenge for him, and he wants to accept that challenge and see if he can get him turned around. I feel like they haven't been good since the Cordell Stewart days, way back when. So we'll see what happens with the Buffs in Colorado. But some of the spring games, I mean, Sam Hartman looked really good for Notre Dame. I kind of figured that was going to happen. I mean, the guy's had a pretty decent career at Wake Forest. Get into him a little bit more later with the player to watch for 2023. I'm going to be bringing a player to watch every podcast. So every one of the episodes, I'll have a new player to watch. This week it will be Sam Hartman. So want to dive right into my top 20 coaches of all time. I've been chomping at the bit for this one. And again, not everybody's going to agree with me, but hey, this is what I got. So I'm going to start with number 20, work my way down. So coming in at 20, I got Fielding Yost. Ohio Wesleyan, Nebraska, Kansas, Stanford, San Jose State, and Michigan. He was 198, 35, and 12. It's an 81% winning percentage. 1-0 in bowl games or postseason, and he had 6 national championships. So anybody that has followed college football for a long time, Fielding Yost was a good player as well as a coach. So him coming in at number 20 seems like a maybe even kind of low, but again, this is my thought process. So, number 19, Lou Holtz. William and Mary, NC State, Arkansas, Minnesota, Notre Dame, and South Carolina. Really prominent with Notre Dame. You think of Lou Holtz, you kind of think Notre Dame. But he has been around. 249 wins, 132 losses, 7 ties. Gives him a 64% winning percentage. 12-8-2 in bowl games, 55% winning percentage, and he's got 1 national championship. So, number 18, I got Walter Camp. And if nobody knows Walter Camp, there's a award in his name as well, but he coached at Yale and Stanford, also played for Yale for 5 years, lost 2 games as a player for Yale. That's it. 2 games. It was like 68-2, I think. So, but 79-5-3 as a coach. That's a 91% winning percentage with 3 national championships. That's pretty wild. But there is, like I said, there is the award in his namesake. So he's coming in at number 18. Number 17, I got Bob Stoops from Oklahoma. 191 and 48 for an 80% winning percentage. He was 10 and 9 in postseason bowl games, 53% with one national championship. When you think of Oklahoma, you think of maybe a couple of coaches. You think of Bob Stoops for sure, Barry Switzer perhaps as well, and then much earlier than that, Bud Wilkinson, who's going to show himself here in the top 20 as well. Number 16, I got Lavelle Edwards, BYU, 257, 101 and 3, 71% winning percentage, 7, 14 and 1 in bowl games. So not a great record in bowl games, 32%, but he did have a national championship as well. The old bowl coach at number 15, Steve Spurrier, Duke, Florida, and South Carolina. He was 228, 89 and 2. Gives him a 71% winning percentage. And then he was 11 and 10 in bowl games. So I gave him a 52% winning percentage with one national championship as well. Frank Leahy, he comes in at number 14, Boston College and Notre Dame, 107, 13 and 9, which gave him a 83% winning percentage. He was 1 and 1 in bowl games, 5 with 5 national championships. Another Notre Dame at 13 with Newton Rockne, 105, 12 and 5 with an 86% winning percentage. 1 and 0 in post bowl games, a little early for bowl games, but 3 national championships for him. So Newt Rockne coming in at 13. Number 12, I have Glenn Pop Warner. If anybody doesn't know, Pop Warner, football for the youngins, that comes from Glenn Pop Warner, coached for Iowa State, Georgia, Cornell, Carlisle, Pitt, Stanford, and Temple. 311, 103, and 32 for a 70% winning percentage. And he had 4 national championships. So I have Glenn Pop Warner at number 12. Number 11, Ara Parseghian, Miami of Ohio, Northwestern, and Notre Dame. Most prominently known, obviously, for his time at Notre Dame, 170, 58, and 6 with a 73% winning percentage. 2 national titles. That is Ara Parseghian coming in at number 11. Number 10, this one hurts, Bo Schembechler. Miami of Ohio, Michigan. He was 234, 65, and 8 with a 76% winning percentage. 5 and 12 in the postseason, so he was only 29%, and he had no national titles. So Woody got the best of them. We'll just put it that way. Number 9, I have one a little bit more new, I guess you could say, but Urban Meyer, Bowling Green, Utah, Florida, Ohio State. He was 187 and 32. That gives him an 85% winning percentage. 12 and 3 in the bowl games postseason for an 80%. He had 3 national titles, 2 with Florida, 1 with Ohio State. So I have Urban Meyer at number 9. For some of you, you may not know my next one very well, but one of the best coaches that ever coached the game would be Eddie Robinson at number 8 for Grambling State. 408, 165, and 15. It gives him a 70% winning percentage. He had 9 national titles for historically black college universities. The guy was a primo coach. He could have probably went to another, a blue blood program, whatever, and done his thing, but he stayed with Grambling State. One of the greatest coaches, I think, of all time. Puts him in number 8. I mentioned the next one at number 7 a little earlier, Bud Wilkinson for Oklahoma, 145, 29, and 4 with an 82% winning percentage. He was 6 and 2 in bowl games postseason, gave him a 75% winning percentage there, and he had 3 national titles with Oklahoma. Number 6, Bobby Bowden. Everybody knows him really for Florida State, but he also coached at South Georgia State, Howard, and West Virginia. He was 377, 129, and 4 with a 74% winning percentage. He had 2 national titles, and he was a 66% winner in his bowl games, 21-10-1. Number 5, I got Joe Paterno. We all know how his career ended, but you can't take away what he did as a coach for Penn State. 409 wins, 136 losses, 3 ties, 75%. He was 24-12-1 in the postseason, giving him a 65% winning percentage and 2 national titles. So I got Joe Paterno in at number 5. Number 4, one of my personal favorites, Woody Hayes. So he was a coach for Denison, Miami of Ohio, and Ohio State, which would be his most prominent posting at Ohio State. 238-72 with 10 ties, gives him a 74% winning percentage. He was 6-6 in bowl games postseason, 500, but with 5 national titles. Number 3, Paul Bear Bryant. Most prominent at Alabama, but he also coached at Texas A&M, Kentucky, and Maryland. 323, 85, and 17 gives him a 76% winning percentage with 6 national titles. He was 15-12-2 in the postseason, gives him a 52%. But really one of the most iconic coaches that is out there, wearing that checkered fedora and everything else. But Paul Bear Bryant coming in at number 3 for me. Number 2, Tom Osborne with Nebraska, 255, 49, and 3, giving him an 83% winning percentage, 3 national titles, and he was only 48% in the postseason, but he definitely, with 3 natties, he definitely got it done in that respect, but just a little under 500 at 12-13 in the postseason. And it brings me to number 1, and it pains me, but Nick Saban. Toledo, Michigan State, LSU, and currently still with Alabama. 245, 63-1. He's got an 80% winning percentage with 6 national championships. He's 14-10 in the postseason, giving him just under 60%. The reason I have Nick Saban at number 1 is his body of work already, but the guy's not done. And I know he's getting a little bit up there, and Alabama didn't look nearly as good as maybe they usually would last year, but we're talking about Nick Saban, so I think overall they'll be fine. But I do have him at numero uno. So those are my top 20 coaches of all time in college football. I'm going to be bringing you guys a top something, whether it be 5, 10, 20, whatever. Maybe went a little bit too big on this one, but how do you fit all of the great coaches that have been in college football in, unless you're doing at least 20? I'll probably do one later on, maybe the top 5 or 10 in the 2000s. That one will be interesting. That'll have some different coaches in there, some different names, but maybe some of the same as well. So that was the top 20. So for the rest of the time here, just want to get back into some of what I think moving forward with college football and the state of college football, where we're going, some of the things that, some of the changes that we might see. Are we rolling towards the SEC and the Big Ten being the 2 biggest players in college football? It kind of seems like it. We're getting a lot of movement. You got Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC. You have USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten. So it's not really so much of geography in how these conferences are playing out now, because, the Big Ten has all the way from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast at this point. We skipped the Midwest a little bit, but man, what is it going to look like in a few more years with the NIL, with the 12-team playoff? How does that look? How many teams are the SEC and the Big Ten going to be able to put into the 12-team playoff? Are the Pac-12 and Big 12 going to be able to catch up? Are they going to be able to bring some schools into the their respective conferences to get back up there. I just don't know. I don't see it. I mean, the ACC is kind of as well. I mean, they got to get Florida State back up to prominence. You have Clemson pretty much every year, but Wake Forest was good for a couple of years here. NC State was decent the last couple of years. But what does it really look like for the other three, the ACC, the Pac-12, and the Big 12? Are they going to be able to compete with the Big 10 and the SEC moving forward? I don't know. But I know that I'm excited for the 12-team playoff. I think it gives some of the other teams and conferences a chance, the non-Power 5 schools as well, bringing those in. If we had a 12-team playoff towards the beginning, UCF could have been in for sure. They could have made some noise. It just really is going to bring a lot more competition, I believe, to even the regular season, because you need to be as high as you can get still, but at the same time, if you're in that top 12, you got a chance. You got a chance to make it to the national championship game and play for that title. So either way, I think that it's good going forward. The NIL, I think we've said it a bunch of times on our podcast. We're not necessarily giant fans of it, but if they can corral it, get it right, I think maybe it'll go pretty good. And the transfer portal as well, I'm not a big fan of that either. But we do see some of those moves that have been happening, like Sam Hartman, Tanner Mordecai, some of those other ones that have been in a little bit smaller schools, Wake Forest and SMU, moving to some of the blue blood schools at Notre Dame in Wisconsin. So we'll see how that plays out for them. But just going forward, the state of college football looks good for the most part. There's some little things that I think that they could work on to make it a little bit better, but I definitely don't want to see it be more like the pros, because we love college football for what it is. It's college football. It's the best football that you're going to watch on TV, in my opinion, and or in person. Just the pageantry of it all, everything that goes into college football. Virginia Tech coming out to enter Sandman. I mean, it's just, there's so many different things. The whiteout at Penn State, you don't get those kinds of things in NFL games, or even USFL, XFL, whatever. But you don't get those traditions that you get with college football. So I want the traditions to stay there, the rivalries to stay there, all of those things. But with all of this conference shifting and everybody going everywhere else, we'll see how it plays out. But really excited for the outlook of college football moving forward. So we'll see how it all plays out in the end. But that's really all I got for you guys on this episode. The top 20 coaches. Talking a little bit about spring games. Gonna work on getting the format down. I'm gonna bring some new things to you guys over the next few weeks. So stay tuned. Thank you for joining me. But that's it for me. I'm out. Peace.